Welcome back to Fast RC, buddy. My name is Ryan. In today's video, we're going to cover 3 tips for organizing your RC workstations. So stick around. I'll see you on the other side of the intro. All right, tip number 1 is maximizing your vertical space using pegboards. So what you can see here is an IKEA SCADA's pegboard that I bought here a couple months ago. Finally got it up on the wall. And my idea with this is, like all of us do, we get these transmitters and sometimes we lose them. We leave them in a drawer, leave them on the floor, leave them on the desk, or leave them in the back of our car or in the trunk. I'm so tired of losing these things, so I decided, why not make a vertical space for them? And that's exactly what I did here. This is a 22-inch by 32-inch IKEA SCADA's pegboard. And what I did is I actually printed with my 3D printer some hooks to hold my transmitters. And kind of cool. Here's an example of one hook right here. This is a 40mm hook. And then the ones that I have right here, these are 60mm. You can even see it's holding my SCX24. Kind of a cool spot for that. I actually thought this would be really cool to hold like mini Zs and miniature vehicles like that too. But the point of this is to get your stuff, to get your workspace more organized, utilize vertical space. And, you know, using pegboards like this to hold your transmitters or your tools, really good thing to get your most common stuff up in a nice organized spot so you know where it's at all times. And speaking of tools, let's roll over here. I have another board here with my workbench where I keep all my tools. Obviously, like, it's not completely done yet, but I will be filling this out with more tools as we move along. But in the meantime, you can see that I printed a couple of different like tool pockets here out of PLA, holding some of my bits and my different drivers, odds and ends, scissors, body reamers, screwdrivers, and then of course, MIP tools. If you've been in the hobby for a long time, pretty good chance you got a good set of tools. And then of course, like 3D printed tools and things that I use. But like I said, tip number 1, maximize vertical space. So let's move on to tip number 2. All right, tip number 2. So going along with the lines of maximizing your vertical space, having an actual space for your RC vehicles. I know this one seems kind of obvious and kind of falls in lines with maximizing vertical space of tip number 1. But this is something that I actually did not do for a long time. A lot of times I would just keep these like vehicles on the floor or like on a table somewhere. Or, you know, just you name it, it would be all over the place. And I finally got tired of that and said, you know, I'm going to actually do something about it, just like I did here with the pegboard. And I went out to Harbor Freight, bought myself some plastic shelves. I think I paid like 45 bucks for these. Nothing special. Only takes like 10 minutes to put together. But you can at least see that it holds all my RCs that I currently have at the moment, such as my ATV guy, a Slash and a Stampede, a Gorgon, another Slash, and then a couple of long forgotten vehicles down there at the very bottom. But the point is, like I talked about, using vertical space, getting a cheap shelf to hold your stuff actually goes miles to helping to keep your workspace organized and not having your vehicles all over the place and all over your workbench. And it doesn't have to be expensive. You can get a cheap shelf just like this. So that's it for tip number 2. Let's go ahead and talk about tip number 3. All right, here we are at tip number 3. And this is one that I'm not saying is absolutely necessary, but this is something that I did. I actually went out and bought myself a toolbox, finally. I'm not kidding you. I've been in this hobby for over 10 years, and I pretty much just rolled with this little tiny Craftsman toolbox for like the last 10 years. I'd keep most of my tools and spare parts in that box. And I finally decided to graduate up to a nice Harbor Freight US General toolbox, mechanics rolling toolbox. Of course, I do actually keep real tools in it also. But I just felt that it was finally time to step up, get a bigger box, do some more organization, albeit this thing isn't totally organized yet. But I have big plans for this thing, especially for the RC hobby. And so at least for this video, I do have one thing to show you. So there's a specific reason why I bought this cart, and it's to turn it into a charging station. Now, I've seen pictures of this on Facebook of people doing something similar with these toolboxes. Now, keep in mind, I don't actually store my LiPos in here, although I do have a couple LiPos right there in the box. I do charge inside of this charger box, so I don't have the cables in there at the moment. But normally when I charge, I actually do use this box. I got my high-tech charger here, had this thing forever. But the real, like I said, the real reason why I wanted this toolbox, and I only spent $205 for it, is for this opening top section where I'm able to put my charger, my charging box, and then it's got this nice like grommet here in the back where you can run your power cable through. So like you see here, you just go ahead and run your power cable and then bam, you're set up. And you know, when I charge it, I keep the lid open. But if I was unfortunate enough that one of these LiPos popped off while I was charging, it may ruin a $200 toolbox, but I'll take a $200 toolbox being ruined over my, house burning down. But this is the real main reason why I bought this toolbox. And so now I have a dedicated charging station. So that's it for tip number 3, getting a toolbox, stepping up your game, actually having a real toolbox, a place to put your tools, parts, or in my case, an actual charging station. So that's it. Let's go ahead and get the final thoughts. All right, here we are, final thoughts. So those are just my 3 tips to you guys. By all means, my workstation is not perfect. Obviously, in some of the shots, you could see I still have like bodies laying on the ground. I got bags and boxes, so I'm not perfect. But that's okay. We're taking steps to get there. I'm finally getting things off the ground or off the table and using vertical space like walls and like the pegboard behind me or the shelf that's behind me. We definitely have ideas using the toolbox, getting more organized. That's the goal. And so that's the tips I wanted to share with you guys. I've been like working on this the last month. And to be quite honest, I have a pretty limited imagination. So it takes me a while to figure this stuff out, like where exactly I want to put everything. But so far with my 2 pegboards and my shelf, and you can kind of see the setup of my tables that I have here going, I'm pretty happy. It's starting to get built out and I'm starting to get a little bit more of a vision where I want to take this workstation. And like I said, this workstation to me, I really want it to be RC focused. I want this to be a place that I actually want to come and spend time and work on my RCs. And honestly, I think that's like half the battle on RC. A lot of times I just don't want to work on this stuff. But I feel like if I can make a space that's inviting or is just a lot more efficient, then I'll actually want to come out here and do things. So let me know if you guys feel the same way. What do you think about my ideas, about the tips that I shared, about the workstation, whatever comments you got? I appreciate it. If you could, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.